Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers. You are in season 5 of Wrestling at Random, where each and every week the theme is more wrestling than ever. If you've listened to us for a long time, or maybe this is your newest or your first time listening to us, we've had a lot of things available for the randomizer to choose before. But in season 5, it's gone completely overboard. There's more wrestling than ever. Somewhat 18, 19,000 different shows, 50, 60,000 hours of wrestling possible to be chosen at random. And we've had some things on this season that were really deep cuts. We've had some things on this season that were really mainstream pro wrestling. Then we have this week, it's not a deep cut. I wouldn't call it mainstream. It's a promotion that we've talked about before. I've followed it on occasion. This era of TNA Impact Wrestling is something that I have really never watched anything of. I was completely tapped out. This is TNA Impact from March of 2013. And if I'm not mistaken, Jeremy, they say it several times throughout the show. This is the return of TNA being live and on the road with Impact Wrestling.
That is correct. Like you mentioned at the top of the show, we took all the internet's wrestling content, we dump it into the randomizer, we fire it up, and it will pick a show for us to watch at random, and we parachute in and we review that show. And this is a blind spot for both of us, apparently, because I have never been an Impact guy, TNA at all. I've watched a couple of the weekly pay-per-views back in the Asylum days, but the most TNA I've watched is because the randomizer has chosen episodes of TNA and Impact for me to watch here. That's pretty much it. Or over on our bonus content, listeners have chosen for us to watch as well. So this is new to me as well. And I'm pretty sure this is one of the most recent things we've reviewed, as earlier in season 5, we reviewed Extreme Rules from WWE 2012.
Yes.
But this is from 2013. So you want to talk about pulling anything at random. It can pull something that's at minimum 10 years old. So this is the case at the time of this recording. It's 10 years old in 2013. And then we've got stuff going all the way back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. So we spanned all the decades.
Not an exaggeration. There have been some old WWF tapes, other things that have had stuff going back that far. But yeah, I mean, you think about TNA and Impact, the randomizer, not even just on the bonus feed, but here in the free feed, the randomizer has picked really almost every era that would be eligible to be on this podcast. Like you said, at least 10 years old. We've had a couple weekly pay-per-views from the beginning, the Asylum era. We've had the Fox Sports Fox Box era. We had that strange time period between Fox and Spike TV where they were just on their website. We had several Spike TV episodes. I don't know if we've had, it might be too soon for Destination America or Pop, but here we are.
No, we've not had that.
So was this during the Monday Night Wars era of TNA, or is this after that? Because I don't see Bischoff here, so this has got to be.
This is 2013. This is way post that.
I don't remember. I've blocked that Monday Night War out of my mind. The one thing I remember from when they went head to head with WWE Monday Night was that was also Wrestle Kingdom Day, if I'm not mistaken. It was January 4th.
That's right. I do remember that. Yeah, I remember that era. This is post that era, but still, we still have the remnants of Hulk Hogan all over this show. We'll get into that.
Hulk Hogan and family all over this show.
Yeah, boy, I'm looking back at our archives where you can listen to all the past free episodes we've done at wrestlingatrandom.com or in the podcatcher of your choice right there. Just scroll down and you've got a whole bunch of past episodes. Season 2, we did 3 TNA episodes in season 2, and then season 4 we had 2 more, and now season 5 we're gonna end up with 2 more. So yeah, we're definitely, the randomizer is it may give us more TNA than ECW overall, which is a disappointment.
Feels like it has. It's terrifying to think of TNA lasting 20 years when you think of how long ECW lasted, how long WCW lasted. The fact that this company, like their accomplishment, we've talked about it before. If there is a crowning achievement of TNA, it's existing. That's the height is that they exist. The depths have gone far lower, some of which will be chronicled throughout this podcast, through this episode of TNA TV.
You mentioned that this was the first show that they were going live with. Mostly they were taping one show at a time in Orlando in the Impact Zone. And now they're going on the road. And here, it's funny, I was reading the Wrestling Observer newsletter in preparation for this episode. And Dave Meltzer reports that there's been a lot of locker room unhappiness when word got out that for the TV tapings, they'd be paid as if it was one show, even if they appeared on both shows being taped that day. Most wrestlers in the company are on per-show deals, and since they rotate people at house shows and run limited crews, the only shows that the full crew is at, or at least the main crew is consistently on, would be the TVs. And so here, at the first taping outside of Orlando, they're taping 2 shows starting in Chicago, but the vast majority will be getting paid for one show and thus make half as much over the course of a year of television shots.
Jesus.
This show is at the Sears Center, which is in suburban Chicago in Hoffman Estates. So you weren't at this show, Adam.
Oh, I was not at that show. The only TNA shows, well, I've been to Impact Wrestling shows in recent years at Cicero Stadium in beautiful, scenic Cicero, Illinois. But outside of that, the only TNA shows I had ever been to were in Orlando. I think I mentioned on a previous podcast, I happened to be on a family vacation in 2007, and there was a TNA pay-per-view at the Impact Zone. So I went to that, but no, I was not at the then Sears Center for that. I was, as were you, at All Out several times at the Sears Center, which if you're watching on YouTube, you might be wondering, what is this random blue shirt Adam is wearing? He usually tries to tie it into the topic of the episode. Well, it's All Out 2001 from the Now Arena, formerly known as the Sears Center.
That's right. I was at the All In show at the Sears Center. I've been to every All Out that was there, and it's the only time I go to that building. It's the only.
No, I mean, anything goes to that building. Like they have flea markets, graduations, and G League basketball. That's
G League basketball. Yep. So there's no reason to go to this building ever. No. And I was impressed when this show starts. The date of the episode, if you're looking for it, it's available on YouTube as of the time of this recording. And, of course, if you're an Impact Plus subscriber or something, it's available March 14th, 2013 is the date of this episode. And it looked great. There was 4,500 fans there, and it looked full. They did a great job of darkening the balconies and just packing in the people to where 4,500 at the Sears Center, it looked like there was way more people than I expected for a TNA Impact taping. And all reports were from that time that I read was that this show looked so much better. It looked great compared to what the Impact Zone looked like for so many years.
It actually looked like a major weekly television show. Like you said, Lower Bowl looked like it was completely sold out, not just on the side, the hard cam faces, but on the hard cam side as well, which meant that they didn't have to be so worried about not shooting toward the hard cam side. And to your point, like the upper level was pretty much empty, but they had it darkened very well. There's only a few times where, during entrances, certain spotlights would be up and you could see, but no, this looked great. We'll get into it throughout the show. Shockingly hot crowd, considering what the content of this show is. If you ever wondered, why do people say Chicago is a great wrestling town? It's this show, because this is a nothing professional wrestling show. Sorry if that's going to turn you off from listening or watching the rest of this podcast, but by the standards of what would be a great pro wrestling show, this ain't it. Yet this crowd reacts like they're at WrestleMania.
If you didn't tell me where this was, and I just had to guess based on crowd reaction, I was going to guess either Chicago or Dallas
Yeah,
because this crowd was hot for nothing, and these are the two towns where you can get away with that.
yeah, I was going to say Chicago or Toronto. Those are the two
Toronto's a good poll
in
too.
Dallas, another one where in any other city the crowd would be dead. Like, could you imagine this in Pittsburgh? But here they were red hot for stuff that had no reason to be over.
Well, we'll go through all of the things that happened on this show, and we start. This is the first show after a pay-per-view. They had the locked down pay-per-view the night before, so we get a video package recapping the lockdown pay-per-view. We had Hulk Hogan giving Bully Ray Dudley a pep talk. The former Bubba Ray Dudley, now Bully Ray here in TNA. He's getting a pep talk.
Babyface Hulk Hogan is the general manager of TNA, and at this point, going into that match, Bully Ray as big time babyface challenging Jeff Hardy for the TNA World Title.
Which makes Jeff Hardy the heel in this?
I don't really understand.
Did people boo Jeff Hardy ever?
It does not feel like a thing. Was the main event Mafia around at this point still? Are they trying to make him a part of that? I don't know.
And Bully Ray also happens to be the son-in-law of Hulk Hogan because he's married to Brooke Hogan in this storyline. And Hulk is giving him father-in-law advice here. He's giving him the same pep talk that Andre the Giant allegedly gave to Hulk Hogan. And we see the end of the match where there's interference from the Aces and Eights biker gang group here. And
I don't know if you could hear me sighing if that made it onto the broadcast or not. The Aces and Eights, the biker gang. When we'll get to it. The people in this group,
yes,
my God, what a collection! Like the first thing I thought was like, oh my God, I had blocked out TNA, basically recreating the Disciples of Apocalypse, WWF's DOA, but making them the main event NWO level,
making them the NWO,
in 2013.
And basically, Bully Ray turns on Hogan and everyone and joins the Aces and Eights gang. Brooke Hogan, devastated with her father, and Bully Ray is your new TNA World Champion.
The only thing worse than Hulk Hogan acting is Brooke Hogan acting. And you talk about just things coming together here. If you follow us on our bonus feed, if you support the show at patreon.com/wrestling@random, one of the most recent episodes, and if you're listening in linear time, was the WCW Prime. Or wait, no, that was here
Prime
on the free
was here.
feed.
Yeah,
that's on the free feed. Yeah, if you're listening here on the free feed, you just heard this last week. So we are deep in our Hulk Hogan acting era of Wrestling at Random. My God, we go from him bursting through the wall in the cavern of the Dungeon of Doom to now acting with his daughter about the betrayal of when Bully Ray. What an arc we're on.
Get me out of this era immediately, Randomizer. Yeah. I can't handle it.
We need an All Japan TV palate cleanser.
Yes, please. We get a look at the announce desk where our announcers are Todd Kenley, Mike Tenay, and Taz.
Todd Kenley?
I don't know who this Todd Kenley is. Like, wrestling play-by-play guys is like a small group on the TV level, right? Like they move around, and you pretty much know who everybody is. Not a lot of spots open up here. A Todd Kenley in 2013. Never heard of him then. Don't know of him now.
So he has a cage match rating of 7.89. He's from San Clemente, California. He's a play-by-play commentator. I don't know.
Is he a Bellator guy that they were doing big crossover here at this point?
Yeah, I guess he did Bellator, United Wrestling Network, Paragon Pro. I guess that's the deal. All I know is I don't understand why you've got Taz here, like Taz, like cosplaying like a biker, which we'll get to that throughout the show. And then Mike Tenay is here, but Mike Tenay barely gets to talk.
He doesn't say anything on this show. I don't know what this was. So
why was Don West not here? Why was there any era where Don West was available that it was not Mike Tenay and Don West?
We go to the ring for our opening match. The TNA Tag Team Championship. The challengers come out. It's Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez. They're going to be challenging the tag team champions, Bobby Roode and Austin Aries. However, Aces and Eights come out, and they jump Chavo and Hernandez before the champions are even introduced. Devon Dudley is part of the Aces and Eights gang here, and he grabs the mic, tells everyone to sit down and shut up, and introduces the new TNA champion, Bully Ray. Bully comes out. He's coming out to the Aces and Eights theme song.
He comes out like through the crowd. This is basically Bully Ray with the lamest Jon Moxley AEW entrance you've ever seen in your life.
He comes out, and the song that's playing, the Aces and Eights theme song, did you know? The lyrics to that song were written by Serge Salinas, who's Dixie Carter's husband, and he was the head of the TNA music department.
Wow. He certainly earned that title.
Taz gets up and hugs Bully Ray because Taz is a member of this Aces and Eights group as well as a commentator, which I was not expecting to see Taz in biker gear as part of this Aces and Eights group.
No, I was not either. And my God, if you go on Wikipedia, there is a novel-length recap of the history of the Aces and Eights.
Oh God, no.
I will not subject anyone to have to
listen
to this, but I am going to run down the entire list of Aces and Eights members, some of which are not here at this point. But this is the entire list of all-time Aces and Eights members. Bully Ray, the president of Aces and Eights.
Yes, he's the president here.
From March 10th, 2013, November 21st, 2013. The first lady of Aces and Eights. Spoiler alert, we don't see this on this show, but just to give you an idea of how ridiculous and terrible TNA storylines were. Brooke Hogan.
Oh, she turns on her father at some point?
She turns on her father, reunites with her estranged husband, Bully Ray, on August 22nd, 2013.
So she is storytelling.
The first lady of Aces and Eights. I feel like if we start a wrestling storylines timeline podcast, as we've threatened to do many times, with season 1 being the lore of The Undertaker, Kane, and Paul Bearer from beginning to end, season 2 must be the complete history of the Aces and Eights. We also have Vice President D'Lo Brown, second Vice President, Mr. Ken Anderson.
Oh, Mr. Kennedy. Okay.
He is here, and he is so bored throughout this entire time. He's such an extra throughout this entire show as part of Aces and Eights. Devon Dudley, Sergeant at Arms. Then for 2 weeks in the summer of 2013, Tito Ortiz is the second Sergeant at Arms of Aces and Eights. We also have spokesperson Taz. We then have a group of soldiers in I almost said the DOA in the Aces and Eights, that being someone named DOC. We also have Garrett Bischoff, the son of Eric Bischoff.
Wow.
We have Nux. I have no idea who Nux is. KNUX, of course. Wes Briscoe.
Wes Briscoe is the son of Jerry Briscoe and the nephew of Jack Briscoe, wrestling legends.
My favorite member of Aces and Eights, there are three that are listed as prospects. CJ O'Doyle, that's one. Leva Bates, the librarian of AEW fame, was a member of Aces and Eights for 1 day. And someone just named Mike. The Wikipedia citation says, Mike made one appearance as a member of the group. After being interrogated by Austin Aries, he was kicked out of the group to prevent him from leaking information. We also had Ivelisse Velez was an honorary member of Aces and Eights 5 days after this show, representing Aces and Eights at One Night Only World Cup of Wrestling, which the only thing I could say about this is the guy who was holding up the Bring Back Ivelisse sign for the entire show must have been thrilled 4 days later when she was an honorary member of Aces and Eights.
Sounds like he was a plant. So that is more interesting than the rest of this show. So here, Bully Ray. I'm gonna do that the entire show here. So Bully Ray is running down Hulk Hogan. He's talking about how he screwed Brooke and made a fool of Hulk, and
he also made a fool of the fans. I could hear Jim Valley behind me talking out because the fans.
Yes, this crowd is helping this along. I mean, Bully did a good job with his delivery. He's always fine in his delivery. The content is lacking because it's a lame story, but the crowd is legit chanting for Hulk Hogan in 2013. Thanks, Chicago, for carrying this show to be watchable. In the back, Sting is there. We love Sting on this podcast.
Joker Sting. This also gives you an idea, by the way, of how bad TNA was at this time. You and I both huge Sting fans, and that was not even enough to get us to watch TNA in real time. No,
and I have no knowledge of the Joker Sting era at all. And I'm glad I don't. I'm gonna keep that a dark spot I don't need to know about.
It's pretty weird, and from what I've seen of it, I go back and forth every time trying to figure out whether I think it's great or whether I think it's the worst thing I've ever seen.
Sting's pissed off. He wants to get his hands on Bully. We get more clips from Lockdown where Velvet Sky defended her Knockouts title, which is their women's championship. We go to the ring again. Christy Hemme is the ring announcer, former Diva Search winner. Christy Hemme, she's the ring announcer. She announces this tag team match. Gail Kim comes out. She's, of course, married to celebrity chef Robert Irvine, and Gail Kim had a pretty successful career. She was the head, like the leader of this women's division here in TNA for almost her entire career. She did.
I saw an awesome Gal King Awesome Kong match at the one TNA pay-per-view I went to.
Nice.
The only good thing on that entire show.
She's teaming up with Tara, who is a Chicago native, and she comes out with Chicago flag gear. She also at this time was launching a restaurant in Chicago called the Squared Circle up on Ashland, just north of Fullerton. I loved that place. I went there a bunch of times.
Really?
And,
see, I never got there.
Oh, I went there. I saw her there at the restaurant a few times, and I would when people would come into town, I'd take them there. If we needed, and they always had wrestling playing on the TVs. They had memorabilia up around the thing, and the food was totally fine, and so it was a good place to visit. It is long out of business, but I always enjoyed the Squared Circle. She's accompanied by Jesse, and you would recognize Jesse as he was a former contestant on the reality show Big Brother. You would know Jesse from Big Brother.
I would not.
Our listeners would also know Jesse from the Netflix show The Wrestlers about OVW. He's on that show as well as he's called Mr. Pictacular.
I was so confused here because Tanae's talking about how they're a Hollywood power couple, but he does not explain to those of us that don't watch these shows who the hell this man is. So I have no idea what's going on. And then he picks her up and press slams her and then sets her back down. I don't understand at all.
Their opponents, the team of Mickie James and the Knockouts champion Velvet Sky. Everybody in this match is good except for Velvet Sky. The match wasn't that great. It was just a quick, short TV match. The referee is on probation apparently for getting into fights with the women. So
yes, it's Taryn Terrell. She's on probation, and the deal is if she gets physically involved in this match, other than as a referee, that there'll be serious consequences.
She ends up slapping Gail Kim, a widow's peak on Mickie James, and Velvet Sky hits her sit-out pedigree for the pin.
The sit-out pedigree called In Your Face. Okay. The highlight of this match was Mike Tenay trying to explain that Tara is trying to impress and influence Knockouts executive in charge Brooke Hogan to get the next title shot against one Velvet Sky.
Before this show, if you said to me, trivia question, has Brooke Hogan ever been involved in pro wrestling? I would have been like, I know the answer. The answer is no. She's an aspiring singer, and that's what she was doing, and a reality show person. She
100%
never did anything in pro wrestling. And here, she had like a run, like a year's run of like being a TV character, and I had no idea.
Yeah, being a TV character, being a TV like on-air authority figure, I had no idea any of this occurred. We get it's not quite as disgusting of a promotional tactic as an episode of Confidential, or they kept playing the 911 tapes involved with the Elizabeth Lex Luger tragedy. But maybe the next most annoying thing I've seen on any wrestling show that we've had to review for this podcast is every single commercial break we get the tease of coming up later. Brooke Hogan's emotional reaction backstage after Bully Ray turned on her and her father.
We go backstage, and Aces and Eights are in the back. They're all drinking beer together, hanging out. They're trying to get Hulk Hogan to fire them. Bully proposes a toast, and they toast to Aces and Eights. He calls his wife, but Brooke sends him right to voicemail. She doesn't want to talk to him.
And so they all leave a voicemail making fun of her and laughing, and wow, this is great. And then you think, well, we're going to the ring, so maybe things will get better. Instead, what we go to the ring for is the battle, and this is a rematch, so just imagine
it's a rematch from a pay-per-view.
Twice in 1 week. They did this on a pay-per-view and thought, God damn, we got to run this back on TV in suburban Chicago, Illinois 4 days later. It is Robbie E against Robbie T, formerly known and now again known as Rob Terry, the giant, jacked up, roided up Brit, who is a fake Jersey Shore guy here with Robbie E.
Listeners may know Robbie E as the manager Robert Stone in NXT.
That's who that is?
That's who that is.
Name, Robert Stone. Wow.
Yes.
This guy is still around.
He's still around. He's a manager in NXT. Rob Terry is he's a big dude. He's hitting power moves in the least impressive way possible. And he wins with a horrible spine buster.
A stronger looking guy that shows less power when doing power moves. He's
so
like
weird,
gigantic with like a normal person size head, which always throws me off. He's just, there's nothing there. And then the one funny is the crowd's doing feed me more chants during this. So this is a WWE crowd here thinking about Ryback. And then some weird, like old-timey upbeat jazz music starts playing after the match. And Rob Terry is doing flexes and robot style dances and like pumping his muscles to the beat of the music. I don't understand what this is.
No, and then he just starts doing one-armed push-ups. I'm like, all right, this is cool. Whatever. Super weird. I don't know why anyone would think that on paper that, here's where we're going to show off Rob Terry's personality. Like, no.
This didn't even get over in Chicago, to give you an idea of how bad this was.
In the back, Sting confronts Hogan. We go to commercial before anything happens. After commercial, we go to Aces and Eights instead of Hogan and Sting, and Aces and Eights are going to pick a target at random, and they fire up their own randomizer, and they're going to go attack someone later. We go back to Hogan and Sting, where Hogan blames Sting for this. He says, you led us down the path by vouching for Bully Ray that he's a good guy. Sting has an idea. He says, don't fire Aces and Eights. Let me have Bully tonight. His daughter is in a marriage she doesn't want to be in. Hulk's ranting and raving that the world title is compromised. And then Hogan kicks Sting out, says, you make me sick. if you aren't paying attention to like what they're actually talking about, Hogan's delivery was fantastic here, and Sting was great here. Like they were both good performers in this scene.
It was good delivery of terrible content, but the problem for me is, as someone who's a WCW fan, the idea of like Sting being this like sheepish, subservient, fouled friend to Hulk Hogan in 2013, I just can't get there. It's several bridges too far.
We get an AJ Styles video package.
Oh, God.
He's doing his own thing now, and it looks like a heel turn of some kind. We see AJ running away from an intervention between his wife and one of his friends.
This is so bad. So it's this whole saga of, I have a vague memory of this like woman they brought in to like say she was having an affair with AJ Styles, and then they like did this whole thing here. It's like it's his shoot wife, AJ Styles' wife, and some friend, and they're like in their house, and then sullen AJ with his hoodie pulled up comes in and sees the intervention, and then hops on his motorcycle and goes away, and it's this dark, brooding AJ Styles, which in and of itself, the visual of AJ Styles with the beard and the somewhat shorter hair and the hood up, like that is a cool visual. I like the idea of AJ Styles having a little bit different edge to him, but everything around this, them trying to make this feel real life, just takes any actual edge off of it. It's terrible.
Sting's in the back. Austin Aries and Bobby Roode come up to him. They agree with Hogan that this is all Sting's fault. And Sting's done talking. He wants to fight. He chooses Austin Aries to fight. They introduce AJ Styles, but he doesn't come out. Instead, Christopher Daniels and Kazarian, or as I call him, Frank Kazarian, comes out. They're dressed like the Road Warriors. No shoulder pads or anything, but they've got the Legion of Doom looking tights, the face paint. The highlight of this is Christopher Daniels painting Hawk's haircut on his bald head.
It was much better than his Hawk impersonation vocally. It took me way too long to figure out that this was not the Ascension.
The Ascension.
It's 100% Connor and Victor, or whoever those two
You're right.
were.
You nailed it. I'm impressed.
I'm embarrassed. This is the most half-hearted Road Warriors impersonation you've ever seen. But yes, the painted on side mohawk for Chris Daniels was great. Apparently they were called Bad Attitude as a tag team here, which I love because that just has big, Continental 88 vibes. I feel like Dennis Condrey should be kicking around somewhere.
They say LOD was fake tough like AJ Styles and like everyone in Chicago. They get interrupted by James Storm. James Storm comes out. He's going to have a match with Christopher Daniels. Storm, they have a totally fine professional wrestling match. There's nothing that stands out really, but there's nothing wrong with it. It was totally fine.
James Storm was a great TNA character, which you can count on your hand and have several fingers left over the amount of guys you could say, though. I always enjoyed me some James Storm.
Yeah, it was totally fine. Did not mind anything about this match. Storm wins with a code breaker, backstabber there, and then he gets double teamed by Kazarian and Daniels after the match. When AJ Styles comes out, he punches Kazarian, and Daniels, with a shocked look on his face, bails out. AJ's standing there with Storm, and he turns and beats up James Storm as well. AJ Styles is a loner.
Kills him with a clothesline. That is the gift for this week's show. If you follow us on social media, my takeaway from everything so far involving AJ Styles on this show is if they took away all the stupid family stuff and found a wrestling reason for him to be brooding, the idea of AJ Styles kind of without the face paint and standing in the rafters recreating Crow Sting, I love that idea, but the execution of it and their inability to get out of their own way is super frustrating. The other thing about this match that I loved, and it has nothing to do with the actual match, was beforehand when James Storm comes out, he's talking about how, unlike the Road Warriors, you guys, meaning Kazarian and Chris Daniels, aren't actually from Chicago. And that cracked me up because the Road Warriors weren't actually from Chicago, but in kayfabe they were, whereas in kayfabe Daniels and Kazarian weren't. Such a carny business. I love it.
I'm glad you made that comp to what this show is. What this year of TNA Impact is they're trying to redo 1996, 97 WCW with Aces and Eights being the new NWO, to even where they're being outnumbered by babyfaces and still winning. We'll talk about that later. So the Aces and Eights are your NWO retread, and
they even reference it. Bully Ray says we are going to do what the NWO couldn't at the start of this show.
Yeah, and they're taking AJ Styles as the brooding loner to make him the new Sting. It's hilarious how they're exactly doing 96, 97 WCW.
Without understanding what actually made 96, 97 WCW work. Instead of the NWO, which was these cool guys that jumped from the WWF.
There was an invasion angle. Yeah.
Razor Ramon jumping to WCW and doing an invasion angle, an explicit invasion angle until they got sued, until WCW got sued. You have that. And instead they have the redux of the Disciples of Apocalypse, which was part of the failed WWF gang wars that got killed by the NWO storyline in WCW during that same time period. And then on the other side, you have AJ Styles doing the Sting angle, but Sting, it was this decades-long thing of Sting being the WCW guy, and he's betrayed by WCW, and did Lex Luger betray, all this sort of stuff. And instead, on the TNA side, you have AJ Styles, who was a comp to Sting as far as being the ultimate TNA guy. But instead of having some betrayal that we care about, it's he maybe is cheating on his wife. Can you imagine if that's what turned Sting into Crow Sting, was that maybe he's cheating on his wife and now he's in the rafters? Would anyone have cared? No.
We see Aces and Eights jumping Kurt Angle in the back. This is the random guy that they were going to take out. It turned out to be Kurt Angle.
It was Wes Briscoe who confronted him in the hallway coming off of their cage match at Lockdown. Wes Briscoe and Kurt Angle wrestled in a cage match on pay-per-view.
Oh, one other interesting note about Wes Briscoe. In 2020, he announced that he was engaged to AEW wrestler Red Velvet.
Wow. You said one other interesting note. You just gave the only interesting note.
No. It's interesting that this Briscoe is related to Jerry and Jack true. Briscoe.
That's true.
So we go and we go to the ring where Joseph Park comes out to do a promo.
Okay, so I'm going to confess, I did not watch a lot of TNA during this time period, as I said. However, I am familiar with the Joseph Park character. And I'm just going to get out of the way right off the top. I thought by far, Joseph Park was the best performer on this television show. The former Abyss, who everyone is in on the joke. Everyone knows that Joseph Park, who's playing this overweight, nerdy, nice guy, lawyer or tax guy, whatever he is.
But brother? Was he supposed to be the brother of Abyss?
He's supposed to be the brother of Abyss, but everyone knows it's Abyss. His facial expressions, this guy's ability to go from being this psychopath killer guy that we've talked about in all these TNA episodes before to being this scared,
schlubby looking guy. Yeah.
It is unbelievable how this guy as a wrestler, whether it be the Abyss character or the Joseph Park character or something like it, never got picked up by WWE. I guess he ended up there later as like a producer, but this guy stood out far and above anyone else on this show. If you are trying to do, if you're trying to out WWE like TNA was trying to do through most of the show, you're always going to fail. But if you're going to try to do it, at least have a guy like this that can pull this off. He was incredible in this segment.
Yeah, most of my Abyss experience came from his appearances in Ring of Honor. Like when I would go to Ring of Honor shows in Chicago, he would show up there and just like he was twice the size of anyone in Ring of Honor, and he was throwing dudes around and killing dudes. And I'm like, this guy is awesome. I loved Abyss in Ring of Honor. Super fun.
He was
I don't
awesome.
have a ton of TNA familiarity beyond what we've seen. I think we saw a Jeff Hardy hardcore match and some other stuff that was totally fine, totally good.
Building to a match with Sabu that we desperately wanted to see. My favorite live Abyss memory was driving to some hole-in-the-wall town in Iowa, Muscatine, Iowa, for an NWA Midwest show. But one of the big matches on it was a Texas death match between Abyss and Tyler Black, the future Seth Rollins. That was awesome.
So Joseph Park talks about getting his first win, and then he got another win at Lockdown, and Matt Morgan comes out. Matt Morgan says that that Hogan's biggest mistake was signing this clown, Joseph Park, to a contract.
Matt Morgan, let's just reiterate, Matt Morgan here in 2013 is a major pushed act in TNA. I could not believe when this is the guy that came out to confront Joseph Park.
He says he's going to eliminate Hogan's mistakes starting with Park. Park doesn't back down. He says, let's fight. Morgan fakes leaving and then attacks Park from behind. They will have a match next week.
If you watch one thing from this show, this is the thing to watch. Again, just because of Joseph Park's performance. I don't think I've ever said this about another wrestler on this podcast. Joseph Park has Steven Regal level facial expressions throughout this. He is so great.
Aces and eights in the back. And they're asking again, are you going to fire us or what? Do something. Fire us if you have the balls. We go to the ring for Austin Aries versus Sting in a match I would have never thought I'd see.
You talk about a randomizer. This randomizer, did Tenru book this? I don't know. This is it's the ultimate WCW guy against one of the ROH flag bearers. Like, the idea that these guys ever had a match is absolutely mind-blowing. Maybe the only thing more mind-blowing than this is that in TNA, which is not known for their great entrance music or memorable, visually impressive ring entrances, everything about Sting's entrance is awesome. It had to be someone completely different that was involved with this. Actually, we know who it was because the guy, when we went to the
Jeff
2023 Starcast in Chicago, we went to a panel and he described and even played on guitar a little bit of Sting's entrance. It's so great here. He comes off like such a huge star, which he obviously is.
Yes, it was not Dixie Carter's husband.
No, Dal something. Not Dal Torborg, not the Kiss Demon, but Dal somebody.
Austin Aries does Austin Aries things early, which is hilarious because he's in there with Sting.
It's like Andre the Giant is wrestling Terry Taylor visually. It's there's such a size difference. And just seeing, like you said, Austin Aries do all his wacky Austin Aries things in there with Sting. It just doesn't make sense. It's like a video game. You know, like you have No Mercy or you have Revenge of Hit a create a wrestler. Like, oh, I'm going to create Austin Aries and have him wrestle Sting. What?
Sting has had enough and he goes to work. And to the credit of Austin Aries, he is bumping around for Sting to where Sting doesn't have to do much. But everything Sting does is awesome because he's Sting. And Austin Aries he's just bumping around like crazy for this guy. I loved watching him take a beating for Sting. Sting tries a stinger splash, but Bobby Roode, who's out there with his tag team partner, he pulls Aries outside to safety. Back inside, Roode ends up pulling Sting out, and Sting ends up hitting a stinger splash on Roode against the railing. And then Aries accidentally wipes out his partner coming off the top rope. The crowd is going absolutely bonkers for Sting, just like I was watching this match.
And a lot of them cheering for Austin Aries, which I could not believe. There were parts of this match that was dueling 50-50 chance. Let's go Sting. Let's go Aries. I was concerned for Sting because I feel like his hit rate for the stinger splash out on the floor up against the guardrail is relatively low, but he landed it here.
The ref throws Bobby Roode out of the match, but Sting got attacked from behind during this distraction. Sting is seated in the ring, and Austin Aries does a drop kick to the back of Sting off the middle turnbuckle.
Sting has no problem taking Aries stuff. Like he takes that the low suicide dive earlier on in the match. Aries kills him with that. So credit to Sting.
Aries goes to work on the leg of Sting. Sting fights back, but missed a drop kick, and he got really high on that missed drop kick.
Yeah.
Aries then teases a Scorpion Deathlock, but can't figure out how to put it on.
Yeah, that was great. That was the highlight of the match from Aries for me.
Sting fights back. He goes for the Scorpion Deathlock, but Aries escapes to the apron. Clothesline Sting on the top rope, and Aries hits a missile drop kick off the top, but Sting pops right back up. No selling the drop kick, presses Aries over his head and gives him a press slam. Stinger splash misses, and Aries drop kicks Sting in the face in the corner.
Yeah, his running drop kick in the corner. Then Aries hit a terrible Stinger splash,
Horrible.
Which no one should ever try to do the Stinger splash other than Sting because it always looks horrible. That was the case here as well.
Finish comes when Aries tries a brain buster on Sting, which looked hilarious because of the size difference here.
Yes.
But it gets countered into a Scorpion Death Drop, the inverted Sting DDT for a long 2 count. Aries got to kick out of the Scorpion Death Drop. Not a lot of people get the kick out of that.
No, that's on the short list of most shocking near falls that weren't finishes. If anything reviewed on this podcast, honestly, I was 100% convinced this was the finish.
Same. Stinger splash, and then Sting puts on the Scorpion Deathlock, and aces and eights hit the ring before the end of this match. Ugh, here we go.
Such a Nitro, like when Nitro and the NWO were starting it long in the tooth ending.
They beat down Sting. Bully's on the mic. He's like, where's Hogan? Where are you at? Come fire us. Hogan finally comes out on crutches. Comes out to this knockoff NWO theme song. Was this his actual theme song at the time, or is this a bad overdub?
No, this is his actual theme song, I'm pretty sure, because you can still hear the ambient crowd. And like, I was prepared to really rip this to shreds, but if you're going to do a knockoff of the NWO theme song and throw in little hints here or there of Voodoo Child, like they actually did a pretty good job. This isn't like DDP WCW entrance music level, but like I was fairly impressed.
Hogan says firing you is the coward's way out. You are not getting the easy way out. Hogan wants the entire locker room to band together to fight these guys. So here come the baby faces. The TNA locker room empties as Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle, Rob Terry, Chris Park, Magnus. These
big
dudes,
stars. This isn't just like here comes Joey Maggs or something. Like Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe, like they got to clear out the aces and eights, right?
These dudes all hit the ring. They have a big brawl in the ring. This brawl goes on for way longer than you think it would.
Yes.
And the aces and eights stand tall, being outnumbered by the baby faces that are all your top baby faces. The aces and eights win the fight and stand tall.
It's like 30-8 in favor of the locker room. And it's not like they just sent jobbers out. It's all the top guys, and they get beaten down by the aces and eights. Again, not only are the numbers off, but remember who some of the men in aces and eights are. Wes Briscoe.
Garrett Bischoff, a barely lucid Ken Anderson, and these guys are beating down the entire TNA locker room. They took all of the wrong lessons from that 96-97
God.
NWO run and are applying them here. It's unbelievable. Like, that's what killed the company, is they killed all their baby faces in WCW. And there was no end in sight for the NWO.
Watching the thing that killed the spiritual ancestor of this company, and then you're watching 16 years later, the same thing, but with lamer people done even worse. There's a reason why people say that WWE had a full monopoly over mainstream American professional wrestling for 18 years and completely omit TNA's run. It's because of stuff like this. They existed, but only barely.
Bully hits everyone with a chain, and then he gets on the mic. He says, What are you going to do now, Dad, as the show goes off the air? Wow. We hit on all the problems right there. This episode of Impact did a 1.07 rating. 1.41 million viewers saw this episode of TNA Impact. The favorite thing on this show for you? We'll start with the positives.
Well, the show ended, so that was good. No, the by far, everything Joseph Park did in that segment,
Yes.
making something involving Matt Morgan be interesting. He was a superstar on this show by comparison to everyone else. Obviously, honorable mention to Sting doing Sting things and Austin Aries bumping around the ring for him.
Couldn't agree more. Definitely Austin Aries and Sting honorable mentions as well, and honorable mention for Hogan and Bully Ray delivering horrible material in the best way possible. I've seen Hogan act. Well. We just talked about WCW Prime. Where am I? What is this place? Significantly better acting here in this TNA run.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As far as the worst thing, we've talked about so many terrible things. One thing we mentioned earlier and we just didn't get into because there's so many other bad things to talk about, so we didn't go to in detail. But Taz, who we've talked about before, generally as someone we've really enjoyed on this podcast. Absolutely. As a commentator, he's the Michael Cole whisperer. But here he was insufferable and not in a good way. I thought him on color commentary as the Aces and Eights representative was just putrid. It made a difficult to watch show that much worse.
Yeah, honorable mention to Mike Tenay just being window dressing and not actually contributing in the commentary booth at all.
Extremely frustrating that he was marginalized to that degree for a human being named Todd Kennelly.
And then I think in ring, boy, that women's match was not good. The
Rob Terry pose down after the match to that music
match was horrible.
It was the weirdest thing on this show by far.
Yeah, so a lot of bad things to choose from. Way too much talking. You want to talk about a wrestling show being overly heavy on backstage and in-ring promos and not wrestling. That was this show.
Well, you talk about learning the worst lessons of like Nitro era WCW. This was the worst things about Nitro era WCW with none of the things that made those shows still really fun to watch. No luchadors, no awesome cruiserweight matches, no random like Scott Norton against El Dandy stuff that you would just out of left field. None of that stuff. None of the charm.
No, and it was really trying to be Diet WWE.
Yes, and it was Diet WWE filtered through a 97 WCW lens, which is not a good thing.
No, nothing good can come of that. That's
no, with the decades of evidence of promotions trying to do that and failing proves so.
So thanks, Randomizer, for taking us to an era of TNA Impact we were not familiar with, but I now can make Aces and Eights references when we're reviewing things.
I've been there before. I don't need to be there again. That is my takeaway from this week's show.
If you want to hear additional, we have additional, the worst TNA Impact show ever that we saw. You can listen to us review that over in the bonus content that you mentioned earlier. It's at patreon.com/wrestlingatrandom. Over there, we have additional bonus, over 150 bonus episodes over there that you can listen to. When you subscribe for 1 month, unlocks all that back catalog. We also have video versions of all of those podcasts, as well as the video versions of this podcast. If you choose to consume your podcast via YouTube, don't forget to go to our YouTube channel where the entire free feed is up on YouTube as well. We have a video version. You can see Adam and I talk about it and review our shows over there. And when you throw us a subscribe and you like the videos over there, it helps us work the algorithm so that other wrestling fans can find the show. So please support the show by going there. If you can't support the show financially in these times by going to our Patreon. And don't forget all of the 4 other episodes of Impact. We've also got tons of classic wrestling all here in the back catalog for free. I love when I get messages on social media or emails of people who
YouTube, the ultimate interactive
and
tool
YouTube, the ultimate
Random.
interaction. Yes, and comments on YouTube. I love when we get these comments where people are like, discovered your show. I'm listening to this podcast from the back catalog and love this, love that. Here's my memories of this. That's our favorite thing about doing this show. So please continue to go back, check out older episodes, and share your experiences with us around those episodes. We'd love to hear from every single one of you. So please continue to do that. And social media, like I mentioned, follow us everywhere. We're on X, Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky. We're everywhere you can find us at Wrestle at Random. All the links I described, the entire back catalog, it's all available to you on the website, wrestlingatrandom.com. And with that, we're going to call it a podcast. We're wrapping it up. Adam, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm not going to say thank you, randomizers. You always say it giveth and it taketh away. We'll see how the randomizer feels about us next week. Please not another episode of TNA. Could you imagine if it just like next week gave us that lockdown pay-per-view that we already saw the recaps of and we had to watch that and talk about that? My God.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening. We'll talk to you again next time.